Läuft.
Okay, shall we start?
Yes.
Yeah, we talk about using Perl and Java together. So let's ask a question. Who of you lives in a house that is made of concrete or stone or something like that? Okay, and who lives in a house where the furniture is made of stone or concrete? It's possible, but nobody does it, yeah? And who lives in a house which was built using tools that were made of stone or concrete? Like all our old fathers in the Stone Age did, yeah? But, okay. So, the question is, we have here, when we build houses, we have different materials. And they have different strengths. So, we can substitute them to some degrees. So, for example, you can build excellent houses of wood. But building tools from stone is limited. And if we look at programming languages, it's a little bit like that. You can do a lot of things with any language, but they have certain strengths. And so you have things that you can do better with one and with the other. And we should say that we use different languages if they exist. And we have like a lot of good programs, and you see that even anybody of you likes PHP? Nobody. But anybody who likes Wikipedia. So you can do good stuff with sucking languages. So one thing that we have in this world, if we like it or not, but I think we should start to like it because Perl 6 should belong to this list as well, that's the JVM languages. And it's like Java, but it's also JRuby, Scala, Clojure, Kotlin, however you pronounce, Ceylon, Groovy, and it's hundreds of entries if you look at the real list. And they have certain advantages. So the people who wear the ties, yeah, and who have the money to throw at us, they often like them because they copy-paste this from somebody else and it's like what they want. And so if we can tell them, yeah, we use JVM Perl 6, for example, then we are already on the good side of the money. And the operations team know how to run this stuff, yeah, because they run it all the time. And then it's easy to find developers because, yeah. And performance is also quite good because we saw this talk about optimizing Perl 6 compilation and when to optimize and what to delay and these things. And actually the Java guys have done this quite well with the hotspot compilation, and they have really done a good job, and they are close to native C and C++. Some people say they are better, but I don't believe that. But it's a good job. And the price is that you have a very big memory footprint and you have very long startup times. Yeah? So it's something that I never really understand if you look at Perl, which is like more sophisticated as a language. And you look at Java, and then the Perl compilation is done as part of the startup, and the whole thing starts like much faster. And then the memory, we are much more abstract in Perl than we are in Java. It's just like that. But still, the memory footprint of Java is really nuts. But anyway, most of the time it's okay, and people have kind of started to like that, and so it's still on the good side. And then there's another advantage which is quite good. Servers are mostly Linux, but could be Unix, could be Windows, could be whatever you like. And on all this kind, or even mainframes, and all this kind of stuff, this JVM runs. Basically Java, but you can put any JVM language that you like. And it's okay for building houses. So it's kind of our concrete. Yeah? You can build nicer houses with wood, but it's quite okay to build houses of concrete. And then there's some disadvantages. I already mentioned the high memory footprint is a disadvantage. Most of the time you can just throw money at it and then it's solved. But I have seen a project where it wasn't possible because it was still 32-bit age, and then you couldn't throw money in it because you had like this 2 gigabytes and that was it. And we were so desperate that we wrote our own string class and our own hash map and whatever, and then finally found ways to make it work. But most of the time it's not, you just throw in money and it's solved. And startup times, they don't bother you because the place where JVM lives most of the time is on the server, and you start this thing and then you run it for 2 years, and then you put the software upgrade and then you start it again, so startup times is not an issue at all. But for like small tools that we use to do certain things, we even have people who complain if it's a second instead of a tenth of a second. So there it is an issue. Yeah, then we have another issue that is also concerning startup. If you look, has anybody looked at the startup script of Maven? It's like a shell script, which is you can throw up as much as you eat, and then it's kind of like that. But then there's a but script, and it's even worse, so you can't eat that much. And it's really a nightmare if you just use it and you trust it, and then it's kind of okay. But if you want to write these things yourself, it's really horrible. And the thing is, Java just needs to get a lot of things from the command line. That's the way it works, and you're kind of forced to pretty complicated startup scripts. And the other thing that is also a good thing is this 100% pure Java. So we say, yeah, write once and run it everywhere, where everywhere means Windows and Linux and Unix and macOS and mainframe. So yeah, and Perl does that as well, so it's less of an issue. But Java has a harder claim. They say, yes, but we run it without changing the source code, without changing the binary, exactly the same thing. If you're programming it right, you can mess that up, but usually it's like that. And that's a nice thing, but it also forces us to use many nice features or avoid them. We just don't have them, because like if you look at the Linux system when you program it in C, or if you like Windows, you program it in C, you have really cool operating system features that are very powerful and very nice, beautiful, of course hard to use, but you don't have these, only the ones that really map to being the same in Windows and Linux. And so when you want to use them, you're kind of stuck. And in Perl, you just have ways to say, okay, this module just works with the Unix-like system, or this works just with Windows-like system, and you live with it and have just this ways. But sometimes you even have worse situations. You actually need to access operating systems. So, for example, I had to program vending machines once, and then you needed to do like turn the screen when the people open it to do maintenance, had to be upside down, and then you had to control this, and Java just doesn't let you do that. Yeah, so in the end you lose a lot of things. And then there's the next issue that we discover. They are very verbose. So especially if you use Java itself, it doesn't apply to many of the other JVM languages. So as I said, Perl 6 could be in there, and I wouldn't say Perl 6 is too verbose, but Java definitely is, even Java 8. And you write tons of boilerplate code, and yeah, it's cool and it's enterprise and whatever, but it's a pain. And we have tools to generate code. So we go there and then we use Eclipse or IDEA, and then we have 100 lines of code already there. We look at it, it's crap, but okay, just leave it or edit it, and then it's okay. But when we really change it, and we have to at some point, then the tools don't help us anymore most of the time. So in the end, we have to maintain this big thing, and we check the big thing into the source code and not the meta language, do this command in IDEA, and then create the file by that and check that in. You could have something like macros for IDEA, and you have a macro language and check that in. No, we check in the source code with all the boilerplate stuff. So that's what we have to deal with, and that's what counts. Then we have tools for refactoring. So if we rename something, if we move something, it's really cool tools for a lot of things, but they come to certain limits. And then when we have these megabytes of code, edit by hand with whatever editor our choice is, it could be IDEA, whatever, but we have a lot of handwork, the big code base becomes a problem. Yeah, And so, as I said, certain changes are not anymore supported by the IDE, and then we are kind of lost. Yeah, so that's the thing, what we have. And now we think of Perl, and we just thought, okay, Java is our houses, which we were kind of told to build in concrete. And we do that, and we get the money, but then we want to build furniture, and we want to use tools, and we want to be kind of efficient with it. So, just make a team, Camel and Java, and they have they team up, and together we can make sense of them. So that's where I came up with three ways to combine them. So the first thing we already saw the pain points of Java is starting Java. And we can kind of write this crappy bash or even bat script, and we write something in Perl, and we have a more powerful language, so we can find where are certain things, which environment variables we already have, which we don't, and gather a class path and even control in which order it is, which is sometimes making something work correctly on Linux and incorrectly on Windows or vice versa, because it sorts alphabetically, case sensitive or not, and these things, but we can really fully control them and give what we want and have a decent language to write this. And I don't like to write bash scripts that I don't understand. I definitely don't want in bat. And yeah, so with that we can have clean startup scripts. We write one for both platforms. You can deal with it, and we already gain a lot from that. And then yeah, as I said, and yeah. And then there's one issue that I could mention that is quite people forget, but I would just give this as a hint. When you start with a Perl script, usually you start and then the Perl script runs, the Java program maybe runs for a year, and the Perl script that just was there to start runs for a year as well, right? Because we just use system or something like that. And our friend is exec, so we should try to use exec. And that has the effect that we end the Perl script, it has done its job, we don't need it anymore, we don't need to waste our memory, and we just start the Java program from that. So that's one thing. And then when we are already in this level, we have already gained something, but we can gain some bonus if we really want to go hardcore, which we sometimes have to. And that is when we want to run Java more efficiently. The Java guys, they like to go to threads. So they do threads, and then they have the different ways. So you have a framework, and then it's really easy. Everybody can do it, and it won't break. Everything is good. Only the framework uses up all the additional hardware power that we want to use for our program. But okay. Another way is when you have really good programmers, and many people say that they are. They program multi-threading themselves, and most of the time people who tell you that they can do it can't, and then it crashes or deadlocks or so, and of course not in development. It crashes when you have the end of year calculation where you really have a lot of things to do and when it really hurts you most. But of course there's people who can do that. And yeah, so we can also say when you just think of JVM, Scala and Clojure, they are much better at this. So if it's mostly a Java issue, but we can think of it as a more general thing. We can just think out of the box a little bit and say, okay, we really want a powerful software that does stuff, and let's say how we want to do it. And actually we have multiple processes. Okay, we have a bit of a memory footprint, but memory we just throw in money and then we have it. And we just run it several times in parallel, several processes. And these processes, they are separate in memory, so most of the issues are much less painful. Of course, you can create crashes and you can create deadlocks because in the end they have to communicate with each other. But this interaction between processes is what you explicitly do and not implicitly all the time, so it's much, much more under control. And therefore I would advise to think more about this path. And actually this several processes, they share some stuff actually because the way of fork works. And we have very good communication mechanisms between them, even if we constrain ourselves to what only Java knows. And we can even go that way that we say, okay, we need more processes, we create more, and things like that. So that's interesting approach. And I have actually used it for C programs. So there was a C program that did a very good job, but it was not multi-threaded and was very easy, or relatively easy, to write a Perl wrapper around it that started several times, coordinated the instances, and everything was working fine. So it's a good approach. Then the next issue is that we want to do OS-specific stuff. And we can always do things that are done in Linux and Windows in different ways, but Java doesn't allow us. So we have to write a Perl program for that, yeah? And that's a Perl program we write two ways. So one of them is for Windows and one of them is for Linux. Maybe we can write one, but it doesn't matter. And then the Java program discovers, okay, I run on this system, I call this, I run on this system, I call this, and maybe we only need actually one because we run on Linux or Unix anyway. But with the Perl script we can access all the power of the OS and do things that we can't from Java. Yeah, and that's something that I have found useful, yeah. Because I have programmed, as I said, vending machines, and then it was necessary to write scripts that do stuff that Java can't do. And the scripts were called from Java. And startup times didn't hurt, so it's kind of okay. Yeah, then we see we get some bonus from this, because we were talking about OS-specific functionality, but if we look at Perl, we have certain other things that Perl can do well. So for example, we have Perl compatible regex everywhere in the world, especially in Java. But yeah, they're kind of Perl compatible, but in Perl 5 you have real Perl regex, and they're always a bit better, a bit cleaner and whatever. And you can even go to Perl 6 and then you have much better regular expressions. And I find regular expression an extremely powerful tool, and I like to use them. And when I have a big parsing task, then I really like more to call a Perl program to do that than to go through the Java way. But of course it's up to you. And you have a lot of cool CPAN libraries. Of course you have a good set of Java libraries, but maybe you find something where the CPAN library does your job exactly the way you want. Do it. And for example, for parsing data, I have used this. So I have a lot of projects where I did parsing of data in some way, and yeah. So the next pain point that we had was that the code was very big. And then we have to do some refactorings, and we have like more abstract refactorings when you change something from SOAP to REST, or where you change something to be microservices instead of this, architectural refactorings, or even more elaborate normal refactorings that are not supported by the IDE. And sometimes you also want to program yet, but you don't write the code 5 times as you have to, and you just want to write it one time. So we see that Java is very verbose, and it does certain things, but it doesn't do everything. And Perl can parse Java. So sometimes it's you can use grammars, and then you can make really the Java grammar, but you can kind of use regex, and you say, okay, I kind of have only this number of code files, and you constrain yourself maybe to certain things that you write, and then you can write quite quickly something that parses this, or parses certain aspects of it. You can parse SQL, which is extremely useful sometimes, and from SQL you can generate code. You can parse text files, so you write a text file, can be whatever you like, but format you invent, and then you create code from that. And you can write code automatically and do things where people say, oh, that needs a month, but you do it in a day. Yeah, plus maybe 1 week to write the script, but you at least gain 3 weeks. And I think it's quite reasonable. So try to go this way and just step back, go walk half an hour, think about it, and try to automate things and don't do dumb typing for 1 month. It's just stupid. And laziness is a good thing. Yeah. So there is one thing that I should give you concerning this issue. Try to make clean solutions. That means when you have code duplicated 5 times, it's already wrong. Maybe you can get it right in Java. Try to use Java ways. So maybe there is like a way how to deal this. Use it, don't invent the wheel, and once again, it's better. And then when you use Perl scripts, teach your colleagues to use them. Spread it, show them how to use it, and think about this. Yeah? And then you have to think about source code management. And there's like 2 approaches which I both find legitimate. And there you have to think which one you prefer. One thing is you say, okay, my Perl script is just like an editing tool. Check it in the some tools section of your source code management, check in the generated Java files, and if the others don't like Perl, let them spend a month, but at least you saved your time, and maybe you can get some colleagues to get this thing, using these things, but maybe sometimes that's a reasonable approach. Because there's like build process and things like that, so it's not so easy to get into that, and you can spend like 3 months getting it integrated there. But think about what you check in, what is primary and what not, and spend some time what is the right answer. Maybe talk with your colleagues, that's important. Yeah, then there's another thing is continuous integration. So usually you have some of these things running, Jenkins or something, it's always like Jenkins, and you check in things and then this thing discovers it and compiles it automatically. Do you want to integrate your scripts there? Maybe yes, maybe not, but if yes, then you are opening a big box. Yeah, and now when we create and modify code, we get some bonus also out of this. So when we think about testing, we can generate tests. We can even verify results that we run a program, and then, okay, gives us 42 as a result, and then we have to do the calculation with something else to see if it's really 42. And so we rewrite the functionality in Perl, and then if we get 42 as well, then we say, yeah, maybe it's right. And because we have written it 2 different ways, the chance that it's really right is improving over just writing everything in Java and test it with itself. So maybe yes. And you can also call the program that you test from Java, the way we did with starting. And there is another bonus which is maybe too self-evident that you even think about it, but it's useful anyway. You have these log files, yeah? You have like 1 gigabyte of log file every day, and you want something from it, and I found it in pretty much any project useful to parse them with Perl and reorder them and extract information from that is useful. And yeah, that's basically it. So the good news are that we can, the usage of Perl can be applied. I have done these things all, and it worked, and it made my life easier and saved a lot of time, and it allowed me to do certain things at all which I weren't able to do without it, and which maybe people thought were not possible to do, but it's quite easy if you know the right tools. And the challenge is you have to deal with some theology, yeah, because people say, no, this is pure Java and we don't want to spend time learning something non-Java because it's inefficient. But yeah, sometimes learning is a good thing. Okay, you have any questions? Yeah, please.
You always communicate to your bosses that you use Perl.
Sorry?
You always communicate to your bosses that you use Perl, or do you use it sometimes secretly?
That's a good question. Yeah, it depends. I had like I am contractor, so I kind of, depending on the economic situation, have more freedom to choose projects or less. And of course, there's projects. I have had one where it wasn't, where I got a computer from them, and I wasn't even allowed to install Perl on it. So yeah, then I have to communicate my boss. I would like to use it, and I would be more efficient, but I didn't install it there, so I was inefficient. And most of the time I tell them, yeah, look, I do this, and I take like 2 days to do it, and they usually like that, actually. But yeah, it's sometimes depends on the theology of the organization, and you have to play the game a little bit, that you are friendly to the people and don't challenge them too much, and play the game a little bit. Yeah. But I don't lie to them, so I am honest, and I tell them what I do. Or sometimes I just do things because I have to get the job done, but usually I like to tell them that it was more efficient because of this. Yeah. Any more questions? Okay. Yeah, thank you.